probably the thing we should just talk about at the top of the show is the Reserve Bank review, the independent review that was just recently released, the outcome. What do you think of that? Is it going to make any difference to consumers?
At the end of the day, not much at all. To just summarise, they're keeping the 2 to 3% inflation target, so that's unchanged.
That bothers me a bit, but anyway, I'm just worried they didn't really give us much discussion about that.
They had almost no discussion about that, other than it's sort of worked for the last 30-odd years, so let's keep it. The things are more procedural. There's going to be a specific monetary policy board who will make the decisions rather than the existing Reserve Bank board. So
who's going to be on that board?
Well, they're saying monetary policy experts.
What's that mean?
Yeah, good question.
Put your hand up.
I don't know.
You're a monetary policy expert.
Well, Jim Chalmers, if you're watching, I'd love to be on the board.
Yep.
But, it's people who've got financial markets knowledge, who know which way it works. So I can imagine that people from the financial markets would be on it.
Yep.
Academic economists, got to be a little bit careful because the Reserve Bank has 400 academic economists working for it. So in a sense, you don't need them to recheck the modelling and all that stuff. You need people with real world experience. And dare I say, people with knowledge of how the economy works, what will be the impact of rate hikes or rate cuts, or keeping them steady. That's the sort of thing that's going to be on the board. And the only other thing that is sort of noteworthy, instead of 11 board meetings a year, every month except January, there's only going to be 8 board meetings.
What's that about?
I think they're trying to avoid the problem that happens for at least 4 of the board meetings at the moment, and that's having a board meeting after the GDP numbers come out. So they haven't quite formulated this yet, but what they're going to be aiming to do, I think, will be to have a board meeting 2 weeks after each quarterly inflation number, after each quarterly GDP number. So they've got 2 weeks to analyse those numbers. Do we hike? Do we cut? What do we do with these numbers? Rather than first Tuesday of every month when, sometimes not much happens. It's a bit more like the US system where they meet a little bit less often, but with probably a lot more information when they make their decision.
And this point, though, I've read through some commentators, and I think I also heard the Federal Treasurer talk about it, that there's going to be less influence of the Reserve Bank chairman or governor. That is, he's going to have less ability to influence the outcome, although he has denied that he does influence the outcome.
Yes, and yes.
Yes.
the Treasurer and even the former Treasurer, I think every Treasurer that I've been aware of for the last 20 years or more, says the RBA is independent. They make their decisions to hike or cut without fear or favour.
Independent of government.
Independent of the government. They look at the economic data, they make their decision for love or money. Sometimes get it wrong, but more often than not, they get it right. So what the review is also going to lead to is the fact that it's going to put in a more formal sense that the Treasurer of the day doesn't have, not a Labor Liberal issue, just the Treasurer of the day cannot override what the Reserve Bank Monetary Policy Board decide. That can happen. Now, it's never happened in the past.
I was going to say, he's never exercised that power.
Never done it. No Treasurer's ever done it since 1959, the Reserve Bank Act, which is going back a long time now. They've never done it. However, the possibility's always been there, and you never know what goes on behind the scenes. Saying, mate, if you do this, I'm going to override it. So you actually influence the RBA without actually pulling that trigger. So that's taken away. So in a sense, when we hear after this new system's put into place in the middle of next year, the Reserve Bank make their decision, and the government of the day says, look, it's not our decision. They did it. There'll be a stronger element of truth in that.
Right, but the people who are going to be appointed to the new monetary policy decision-making board will be appointed by the government.
Yes, indeed.
It's a bit like the US system where the government at the time appoints whoever the Supreme Court judges are, trying to influence the outcome of, really policy at the end of the day, although they're supposed to be interpreting cases, but they're influencing policy.
Sure.
Do you think, therefore, I guess the question is going to be, what's the term of these appointees and etc.?
Yeah, that hasn't been decided yet. I think the intricate details are still to be formulated. And yes, you're quite right. The Treasurer of the day or the government of the day does appoint it. So there's still this risk that this Monetary Policy Board has, people friendly to the government, let's just say quietly. But that said, if that friendly Reserve Bank Monetary Policy Board makes bad decisions, financial markets will punish them, because if they make a decision that's obviously wrong, the markets will kick them in the tail. We'll see bond yields spiking. We'll see the Aussie dollar falling. So, governments, I think, have to be a little bit careful not to be too clever by half appointing mates to this board. We'll see, but I hope they don't.